Hey, I'm Brennan Harmon, and welcome to Rising Lion. Today, we're gonna be carving. Today, we're gonna learn what it takes to go from a big tree to a log to a piece of art. Follow me and let's see the first steps on how to take all the bark off a tree. Here we have a massive Manitoba maple log. Now, we want all this rough material off so then we can actually sketch out what we want this to look and be shaped like. So then we can start putting in detail work. But first, all this bark has to go. The tools I use to take the bark off the tree. One is a chainsaw, and I slowly just swipe out the parts of the log and pieces of the bark to get it down to the bare skin, where I can have a clean surface. So the first way we do that is we start up the chainsaw, we pick a point, and we slowly start taking away material. Now we're gonna go on to this side of the piece of wood and we're gonna take off some extra material. I'm gonna show you how it looks to take off certain parts of the bark and what we do when we get to parts that are kind of in a bit of a crevice that the saw can't reach. So I'll show that to you now. There's some bark, included bark, deep inside the log that we can't get out with the saw. So we just take a wood hammer and a chisel, and we just loosely loosen it all up so we can get all that rough bark out of there and really see the shape of this log. Once we get inside of it, we can really start to see its shape and how it's going to help us create what we imagined in our mind's eye. Now, taking the bark off a log, it's a long process, but once you get done, you can finally sketch out what you really want to create. This was once a log with lots of bark. I've stripped all the bark off it. I've actually sketched out a design of what I want the piece of wood to look like. And I've picked a side of the log that would fit its shape the best. So now that I have it all sketched out, I'm ready to start making small lines with the saw to really show the marks I've created on this log. And like these other logs here, eventually, once you take off enough material, you can really start to see what they can become. And it's okay to make mistakes. Now let's just jump right into it and start carving some lines so I can show you how a log can really start to come alive when you take some proper care and attention to follow what you started. So it doesn't so much matter the angle you cut the lines on. It matters that you get them as close as possible and that you don't go too deep in the start, because you can always go a little deeper later on. So all we're trying to achieve is to follow these lines. But remember, you also want to keep yourself safe. And it is very important to make sure you have two hands on the saw. When I chase the saw on a line, I'm keeping my body behind the line and in the right cutting position so I don't get kickback. If you noticed, both my hands were on the saw, and I've always kept moving back away from the blade to give myself some space between me and the log. All I'm really trying to achieve is the same depth consecutively. I want a clean surface, and to get a clean surface, you need to be consistent. So the reason why I move my saw so carefully and calculatedly around each corner is not because of only safety reasons. It's because I want a clean, smooth finish. And the slower and smoother I make that cut, the less work I have to do later. Following the lines and being consistent makes your project more efficient. Now, come over here to see where I actually finished all my lines, and now we're getting into a bit more shaping and really showing some contours of what the shape of the carving is beginning to look like. We still have to do some more shaping of the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the body, but we have a general idea of where the carving's going. If you come over here, you'll see another carving that I've put a little bit more work into, and I've really pushed the limits on how deep into the carving we want to go. You can tell it's a little harder when you get a little bit further in, because you don't want to take material away from other parts of the carving that you need later on. So I find when you get into the deeper parts of the carving, sometimes it's good to have a hammer or a chisel to block out each part and then just chisel them away. So here's an example of that. You slowly chip away, and it takes away of how much cutting you actually need to do. With the proper cut marks, you can reduce how much work and effort it takes to make a carving. Here we see the mouth, the tongue, and the teeth. And sometimes it's a little bit too big or too exposed. So you can still there's still enough meat we can take it down to really blend everything in together. Leaving a little bit more of a clean definition between both shapes. So once we've really defined and traced our lines, we can finally get to shaping and sanding. Let's go over here and look at another carving that I've done this process to, and how it really starts making the carving and the shape of the carving come to life. Once all the sanding and smoothing has been done, you can really make a carving pop with fire, the use of a torch. It's my favorite part of doing a carving because it really exposes any and all mistakes you've made and really helps focus in on where you can improve the carving you've made. So, now that you've seen what we can do, please like and subscribe, follow us to find out what's next for this big tiki